Hey folks, I recently made a video on how to go ahead. We went through the process of summarizing some data that we've collected. And on our sheet two, we went through the process of how to write a query and fill out this sheet so that we could get this summary. Well, what I wanted to figure out is whether we can do the same thing with a pivot table. I was able to figure it out, but it took a little trick. Let's show how I did it. So let's just come back over here. Let's go ahead and select a cell in here. Let's insert a pivot table and we'll just create a new sheet. And we've got pivot table 2 here. Now, the issue was that I want to take my student's name and put it into a row. Okay, no problem. But then because I wanted to duplicate what I have here on sheet 2 with my students in column A and my months across the top. Well, let's see what happens if we can do that. Well, the issue is that if we take the amount of data that we've got in these columns, we get this error. And that's because the pivot table is trying to produce too many columns because there's so many dates in there. I don't have the option to right click here and create a, a pivot table group. So the way to solve this is to do a smaller range. And I'm just going to do like the first 25. Now I actually have, again, my students show up. I do have my dates showing across the top, but I can now click across this dates in these columns and I can create a pivot table group by month. Ah, so that's what I'm looking for. Now I can change this back to the full range. And now I can see I have all of my months showing up and I can drag my values in there. So using this little trick, we can achieve the same results here that we get on sheet 2, where student 1 has a total of 19. Let's just double check that. Yes, there's a total of 19. Oh, here's my pivot table too. Total of 19. However, we can clean up a couple of these things here and maybe just narrow these down a little bit just so we can see this a little better. Um, but the issue here is it starts with January and we can't really fix that. Whereas maybe the benefit of my query is that I can start with September, which fits more to the school year. But just FYI, I did figure out a way, and it did require that little workaround of doing a smaller range so that we could click here and build our pivot table group and group up everything by month, and then we could do that. Now we could also have changed that pivot table group to quarter, and let's see if we do that. Now here's the list for quarter one. Here would be uh, let's see, we could do something like that. Uh, Anyway, you get the point. So just an FYI, a little workaround, and we can then create a pivot table with the data to summarize it. We just can't organize it quite as nicely as the query.